I don't know what happened to my hair. Maybe just ignore it. So we're talking today about the Wendigo farm for this week. We're going to be running a ton of Warden of Nothing. So I figured I would give a quick little breakdown of the build that I'm going to be taking into that GM. I don't even have my weapons on me. Actually throwing. I've actually farmed a ton of artifice armor since the last build video that I did. So we have a little bit of a different strat when it comes to stats and the right fragments for the build now. As you can see, I do still go for maximum resilience. Getting that damage resistance is incredibly useful in GMs, but this time around, I'm going for a high mobility build. I want to be able to get my dodge back as fast as possible to use to try to get out of scenarios that I may, accidentally put myself into, as well as constantly being able to proc combination blow. I do still run as high discipline as possible. Having nades to throw at random adds at any point, I find incredibly useful. As far as my class setup goes, most of it is the same, so I'll quickly go through the individual pieces. I run Gambler's Dodge mixed with Combination Blow. Storm Grenades are still pretty nice in PvE, but I may switch them to Pulse. And then the combination of Flow State and Lethal Current. Really, really nice combo. I basically dodge, go into a Combination Blow melee. That jolts targets, kills groups of adds. It's still pretty strong in GMs, especially when paired with the artifact mod that stuns unstoppable champions, but I'll get into that in a little bit. Now, Spark of Recharge is something that I would typically run in PvP, but not in PvE. But since these new armor stats that I'm able to get, I figured I would throw this on. It helps me get my melee and my grenade back when I'm, one shot, which happens pretty often in GMs. Spark of Volts is nice, getting amplified off of finishers, plus you get that extra recovery. Spark of Feedback, if I do get punched in a GM, which I'm typically trying to avoid, I get that extra melee damage, and that stacks with Combination Blow, which I'm going to be using a ton anyway. And the last is Spark of Resistance. This one is pretty straightforward. When you are surrounded by enemies, I believe it's 3, you get extra damage resistance on top of the other damage resistance you already have. Now, I run Gathering Storm with Star Eater scales pretty often. It just does insane levels of damage. The boss room in Warden of Nothing is a little tough to stay alive in, so if you don't kill that boss incredibly fast, it might end up screwing over your run. Now, Warden of Nothing does have all 3 champions, so I'm running a combination of the 3 mods. First being Arbalist with anti-barrier rounds. This one is pretty straightforward. Most of you probably know about this, but you can break an anti-barrier shield in just one shot to the body. My SMG of choice for Overload will probably always be Aikilos SMG. Volt Shot is incredibly powerful in high-end content. It makes the extra damage that you get from Volt Shot really nice to swap weapons and clean up the kill. And Warden of Nothing has acute solar burn, which means that we get a 50% bonus damage to any solar output. So I like running Cataclysmic here because I can swap between my weapons and get extra damage from bait and switch plus that acute damage. I'm using Harmonic Siphon so that when I get multi-kills with Aikilos, I create orbs. 2 of them gives me extra super energy when I pick up those orbs, but then I still get that 1 stack towards Star Eater scales. I'm running Powerful Friends for that additional mobility stat. An SMG Reloader with Overload SMG. Radiant Light mainly serves the purpose of proccing Powerful Friends. I don't really care typically to have my strength stat really high in PvE, especially on Hunter, but it's a nice bonus. Now, this is the combination of damage resistance that I found worked the best when we ran one of these GMs the other day. Solar Resistance for reduction on incoming solar damage. Remember, there is that acute burn, which means that you take a lot of extra solar damage. Concussive Dampener just reduces the incoming AoE damage. This is really, really powerful when it comes to champions, especially Unstoppable. And last is the Artifact Mod Energy Diffusion Substrate. This just gives a little bit of extra damage resistance from all 3 types of incoming energy. Since I'm creating a ton of orbs with my build, Orbs of Restoration gives me a small amount of energy to whatever ability has the least amount. And running a second stack of it gives me twice as much back. And lastly, I really, really, really like this mod. Advanced Scout states that champions use stun take additional damage from teammates. It makes it really, really easy to kill champions. Lucent Finisher spawns heavy when doing a finisher against a champion. Really important part here is that this makes heavy for yourself as well. It's not like Aeons where you only create it for your teammates. And the last one is low entropy superconductor. This just turns my charged arc melee into an unstoppable round. Wendigo is looking like it's going to be the meta DPS weapon in Lightfall, so we're going to be farming a ton of these this week to try to get a god roll. I also really like grenade launchers in PvP, so I'll be looking out for a roll that I can use there as well. If you are unable to do Grandmaster Nightfalls, farming the regular Nightfalls has a chance to drop Wendigo, just a non-adept one. Adept honestly doesn't matter that much. You'll have basically the same amount of damage for PvP and PvE if you get a non-adept roll. I was able to get this one the last time that Wendigo was available, so worst case scenario, if I don't get a new adept, I'll be okay with this, at least for PvP, but I really want that god roll for the day 1 raid. We'll be doing Grandmaster Nightfall help tomorrow night at twitch.tv/strasner. If you want some help and a chance to get an adept Wendigo, go ahead and drop by. We'll most likely be doing a queue system to keep it fair instead of dealing with RNG from raffles, and we'll do our best to get as many people help as possible.